The Russians continue to keep the Black Sea Fleet in ports far from Ukraine. Despite this, the Ukrainians managed to defeat these ships and, in the future, creative and effective special operations such as the operation to destroy enemy aircraft, Spiderweb, are possible. This was stated in a commentary to Obozrevatel media outlet by naval expert, research fellow at the National Military History Museum of Ukraine, retired Captain First Rank Volodymyr Zablotsky. He explained that the limited presence of Russian ships in the Black Sea is due to the lack of need. Their fleet no longer has the task of landing troops on the Ukrainian coast. For now, they are only terrorizing Ukrainian cities with Kalibr missiles and doing so near their base in Novorossiysk. They keep ships in Novorossiysk and in occupied Abkhazia. When they need to, they can launch missiles directly from their bases. But they don't do this for security reasons because a missile can fall where it takes off. And Novorossiysk has oil. It's a commercial port, so they need to go out to sea, at least not far, and shoot from there, he said. Zablotsky also noted that during one of the recent attacks, Kalibr missiles were launched from submarines. The expert added that Ukraine does not yet have the means to track submarines and does not have enough aircraft to fight over the Black Sea. In this situation, according to him, Ukraine can only solve defensive tasks, not allowing the enemy to reach the shore and control its surface carriers. At the same time, the sea drones developed in Ukraine need time to reach their target. During this time, the enemy can find and neutralize them. The situation looks stalemate for now, but the military suggests waiting until the end of summer, when a new structure of the armed forces will appear, also focused on the offensive, because victories are not achieved in defense. We do not have the same resources as the enemy to endlessly fight in defense. This will be a resource war, and for us, it will be a losing one, he said, in response to a question about the effective destruction of Russian ships hidden in Novorossiysk and Russian-occupied Abkhazia, and the possibility of repeating a special operation similar to Spiderweb. He said, Ukraine continues to do everything to destroy this fleet, wherever it is. Ukrainian drones have already attacked the enemy in the Caspian, in Kaliningrad, through intelligence. A man got there and set fire to a Russian missile ship, a carrier of Kalibr. There were drone attacks on the port of Ust-Luga, a strategic point for the export of Russian oil products. This list can be continued, and this is far from the end. The war continues, and we have enough imagination to do it in an unconventional way. According to him, Ukraine was often ahead of the Russians in technological developments and creativity. In particular, it was the first to use FPV drones and surface drones, although the enemy later caught up with this development and scaled it up, thanks to the militarization of its economy. In Russia, information is being spread about the successes of the summer offensive of the occupiers, although in reality, the enemy does not have the strategic potential for large-scale offensive operations. This opinion was expressed by the former head of the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine, General of the Army of Ukraine, Nikolai Malamuz, in a commentary to Telegraph media outlet. They cannot attack along the entire front, but they are trying to find weak spots, including alternative ones. The strategic one, of course, is the Pokrovsk direction. There is a clear position of Putin to break through this direction to go along the Konstantinovka, Kramatorsk, Slavyansk route to capture, but there have been attempts from the Pokrovsk, Novopavlovsk, Kramatorsk and Toretsk directions for many months, and this did not happen, he said. Ukrainian army crushes Russians on the Konstantinovka, Kramatorsk, Slavyansk route. The Russians lose hundreds of soldiers and a lot of military equipment here every day. Malomuz noted that the Russians tried to break through in other places as well. According to him, the retreat of the Ukrainian defense forces from the Kursk region of the Russian Federation freed up 50 to 55,000 units of manpower from the Russians, which they tried to use to break through to the Sumy region. And they moved to the Sumy region. The only format where we are pulling them back is our 90 square kilometer bridgehead in the Kursk region, where we are pulling back 12 to 15,000 soldiers who fought against our troops in the Kursk region. All the rest were moved to the Sumy region. Moreover, they tried to transfer some from the Pokrovsk direction in order to quickly carry out such an operation, to move up to Sumy and organize massive attacks on the city itself. We really retreated in a number of sectors at the first stage, but now we have mastered the situation, built up reserves. This allowed us to advance on Andriivka and push back to the Russians near Yunakovka, added the former head of the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine. Malomuz believes that the Russians will try to attack in the east, in the Donetsk region. Their goal is to try to push the Ukrainian defense forces out of the Donetsk region. The former head of the Ukrainian Foreign Intelligence Service assured that the Russians will try to take the strategic initiative in Chasovo Yar, Toretsk, Novopavlovka and Pokrovsk. However, this will be a very difficult task for the enemy, since the Ukrainian defenders are well entrenched there. Earlier, the head of the Ukrainian Center for Security and Cooperation, Serhiy Kuzan, said that the Russian summer offensive is now at its peak. However, Russian dictator Vladimir Putin's plan to advance in Ukraine are not being fulfilled. Kuzan noted that Ukrainian troops have been inflicting significant losses on Russian reserves in recent weeks. Following the massive US operation Midnight Hammer against Iran's nuclear facilities, the world witnessed something astonishing. The Russian air defense systems used by Tehran were rendered completely helpless. This demonstration of American and Israeli superiority did more than just dash Iran's hopes of defense. It seriously shook Moscow's confidence in its own defense capabilities, writes The Telegraph. For Ukraine, this is a historic signal. After all, the Russian S-300 and its modernized analogues, such as the S-400 and much-hyped S-500, now look helpless when dealing with modern Western technology. Ukraine, which has already surprised the world with operations against Russian strategic aviation, now gets another trump card. The example of Iran proves that with Western support, even the best Russian systems are vulnerable. Putin, who disdains human losses and throws thousands of soldiers into battle, cannot ignore the risk of his own vulnerability. After all, Israel and the United States have demonstrated the ability not only to destroy targets, but also to identify and eliminate key figures in the enemy hierarchy. Ukraine has also proven that it can operate inside Russia, and this causes real fear in the Kremlin. The political subtext is even deeper. If the US decides to arm Ukraine in the same way as Israel, the war could take a new, decisive turn. Putin understands this, and perhaps that is why we hear more and more about negotiations. It is quite possible that the US show of force in Iran is not only a signal to Tehran, but also a warning to Moscow. In modern warfare, technology is everything, and if the West finally decides to give Ukraine its full arsenal of capabilities, Putin will have no choice but to capitulate. Recall that on June the 22nd, US aircraft attacked Iranian nuclear facilities. After that, the White House called on Tehran to turn to negotiations on halting its nuclear program. We have completed our very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. The primary site, Fordo, was dropped with a full load of bombs. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is no other military in the world that could have done this, the American president said on his social network, Truth Social.